Hello and welcome. My name is Caity Green.
And I'm Dan Green, and this is the Greening Out podcast. This is where we step out of the societal bubble and actually navigate the real world. Thanks for tuning in. This is our first episode, and it's more of an introductory episode.
Yes.
Just to discuss us and sort of where
Who
we came
from.
Yeah, and why we had the idea to start this podcast in the first place. So,
well, I want to make this as organic as possible. So again, I'm just going to go into it. Okay. So my name is Caity. Caitlin Green, and I am married to Dan here. We've been married for 6 years this year. So me and Dan are a couple. We live in Glasgow, in Scotland, and like I say, married for 6 years. We've got a little dog, and we do not have kids yet. I'm 28. Dan's 27. Sorry, Dan, I don't really want to tell your story, but
Toy boy.
Yeah. So that's
the very briefest of our background. Yeah. What's kind of important is that even though we've been married since like 2008, it's just recently. I think I'd been on it a bit longer than you. I'd been on a sort of, we call it a spiritual journey or an awakening journey,
some
or
sort of, eyes open kind of thing.
And you've recently it's like a massive hand from heaven picked you up and just sort of tossed you right in the middle of it, because you've changed a lot.
And they're just actually the last 4 months.
Yeah, you've changed an awful lot of the way you used to be.
I think there was always something there. I think it was a wee niggle at the back of my mind. But I'll go into that in a little bit. But yeah, we just sort of wanted to say, we're a couple. We're just two people. We both work full time.
Not for a lot of money. I'm a postman.
I work in a shop for a living. I'm in retail / healthcare.
A pharmacy.
So yeah, it's not.
We'll talk about voluntary healthcare later.
Yeah, that will come up. We're just two people just trying to live our lives the best way that we can.
But I think what we should bring in now is we should say, one of the big things was when you started thinking different, and so did I.
Yes.
When you started coming online to my sort of thinking, we started talking about we started to realise basically that people hear of the project of Prussian schooling system.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people that might listen will have heard this and will understand it, but for anyone that doesn't, because let's not assume that anyone doesn't understand what we're talking about.
That's exactly. I think you need to sort of.
And let's just quickly summarise it. In the 1800s, in Prussia, which was the forerunner of Germany, they had a lot of problems. They had problems with soldiers. Soldiers were running away from battles and things like that, and thinking for themselves. And I can't remember his name. It escapes me now. This picture, but
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. But anyway, this system was developed of schooling, which we now describe as Prussian education.
Well, I think now it's just called education, but never mind.
Yeah, but it was basically a system. Yeah, it was a system of indoctrination.
Yeah,
it was brought to everywhere else through Europe. It was brought to America.
By the way,
and that's the type of education I was going to.
If you hear any weird noises, I'm having a cigarette. Okay, so I'm a smoker. If you hear any weird noises and you're like, "Hey, what's that?" I'm having a cigarette, so I do apologise. Thought I'd say that.
Yeah, so this Prussian education system was exported to Britain. It was exported to America.
Yeah.
And it's more of an indoctrination system, if we're honest. But what is this about? It's like it removes critical thinking out of the equation. That's the point I want to get across, just going on our narrative of how we're going to lay out this introduction.
Yes.
Because that's why we don't want to send our potential children to a public school, because we understand that critical thinking's been taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
The education system is bollocks.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to home educate.
Yes.
And home educating is something of a stigma in Scotland, because you don't hear of anyone that actually does it.
No, I've really taken this has been my little project just the last couple of weeks, asking various people, the majority of whom have children, what do you think of homeschooling? And out of I would say realistically, I've asked probably 8 or 9 people. Of those 8 or 9, only 2 said to me, I guess it's cool. If you want to do that, as long as you give your kids the best education that you can provide to them, that's fine. Yeah. But 7 people or so were like, oh no, you don't do it. They're labeling it as selfish. By the way, as if no offense to my future children, oh my gosh, how I will love you, but I would much rather have maybe 8 or 9 hours a day to myself. Yeah. For some me time, but that's my child. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna.
That's what I thought was interesting. Like selfish, that's like selfish. Surely being selfish is sending them to some government institution that will deal with them for you, so you don't have to think about it.
You only get called in if Jimmy bites the teacher.
Yeah, surely that's what selfish is. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say so. That's my opinion. Now, you might be surprised to hear, dear listeners, my mother and Dan's mother, they are both teachers.
Primary school teachers.
Primary school, which is the equivalent to elementary school, young children. Both of our parents are teachers. Both of our mothers, are teachers. And so you might be surprised. That sounded
a bit weird there, both of our parents.
Both of our parents, I know. It's like, yeah, we're totally...
There's something weird incestuous going on.
I promise you that's not the case. And you would think maybe the two of us, Dan and I, would be a bit more pro... public school, but no.
But people always sort of rebel against their parents and all that in a way, don't they?
Yeah. Maybe our child, I don't know.
Maybe our children will be big into public schooling.
Maybe they'll be like...
just to get around us.
Maybe they'll be like conservatives,
We technically are in a way.
I'm talking about Tory government conservatives in this country.
We're getting
We're going to have to, we'll get into that another time.
That's a total other topic.
What I think maybe a good idea at this point is to talk about just a brief sort of history of how Dan and I came to our belief systems. Yeah. We can sort of go through that. Dan, do you want to go first, or will I, or whatever?
Yeah, I'll go first, if that's alright.
Yeah,
well, I... typically when I was younger, I was sort of Scottish nationalism appealed to me until I understood that what they're claiming being still in the EU is not Scottish nationalism, but again that's a whole other show. So then I moved very much to the left, very sort of socialist, I wouldn't say communistic, but quite hard left socialist. Then before I did more research, philosophy and critical thinking, and then I started to understand anarcho-capitalism, and was very surprised as to when I started to realise the sheer reliance on the state in Scotland particularly, because that's in Britain in general, but in Scotland generally, and that's when I became I saw things clearer, and I became very anarcho-capitalist. And sort of when I was like younger and I was more sort of left wing, I used to think that government education was a good thing for educating the people, but it reminds you of all those sort of, you see those old communist Russian sort of thing, propaganda posters with the big muscly man with his fist in the air and all this kind of thing. Then you realise that it is all nonsense. This is when I started to realise all this was complete bollocks. And obviously I was brought up Catholic as well, and then if you actually climb out of that and you see the nonsense of the Vatican and the sheer amount of horrible child molestation scandals, so that's just...
The hypocrisy of the Catholic Church is one like no other.
It's madness.
But anyway, listen, I don't want to bash.
But yeah, so that's just like a brief history of where Dan comes from ideologically.
Yeah.
So like a brief history of Caity ideologically.
I don't know. I'm actually, a good thing to mention is I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Woo, Canada.
So, woo. I lived there until I was 11. And then my mother's from here, so we all packed up. Me, my mum, my dad, my at that time 2 sisters. I now have 3. We packed up and came over to Scotland in 1997, and we've been here 17 years next month. So yeah, I've lived the majority of my life here. I guess my journey to this point in my life, which I should also say, my ideas are not necessarily changing, but they're all kind of altering every day. So, but I'm on the journey right now still. But how I came here was,
I think anyone who's intellectually honest would say that their ideas change. Well, not every day, but like, you know, as the facts change, I change my mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Continue.
sorry, I had a bit of a mind blockage there. I never had religion growing up. On paper, I was Catholic. I had, you know, baptism, communion, confirmation, all that jazz. So yeah, on paper I was Catholic, but we never went to church, mass, whatever you want to call it. We never did that when I was growing up, whereas I know Dan did.
Oh yeah, a little too much.
Yeah. No, you were quite a churchgoer. I remember. So I never had that when we were growing up, but all of a sudden we moved over to Scotland, and religion was, I feel, a much bigger deal here. There's a lot of churches everywhere. Starbucks, you know, in New York, they're everywhere. You know, they're like just churches every couple of miles you have another parish. You know,
churches and pubs.
Churches and pubs. That's Glasgow. And hairdressers, churches, pubs, hairdressers. That is Glasgow.
There's an extreme amount of hairdressers.
But basically, all of a sudden we moved here, and my grandparents, we were living with them, my mom's parents, and they're very, very, very religious people. So all of a sudden we were going to mass every Sunday, and I was like, what the hell is this? I don't understand what is happening here. And I was like, Mom, you never told me about any of this stuff. You know, I had never read the Bible. Very
few people.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know the stories. I didn't know a lot of stuff. So all of a sudden we were doing that, and I was going to a Catholic school, basically, because, I guess here people think Catholic schools are better somehow.
Well, here Catholic schools are, for anyone who doesn't know, Catholic schools are state subsidised here.
Yes.
So we have just as many Catholic schools as we do non-denominational schools. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because you do have some people now who... I'm an opponent of faith schools. I'm an opponent of all schools, all public schools.
Any school.
But you do have some people that say... some Protestants who say, let's get them Catholics out of their own schools. It was those Protestants that wanted the Catholics not to be educated with their children in the first place.
Yeah, history.
But, I'm against faith schools and public schools.
I'm against school.
In general.
Yes.
Get back to your train of thought. We digressed for a second. But that's okay. We will digress a lot of times.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let's get back.
We will always come back.
Yeah.
So, I was talking about, Catholic school. So anyway, I all of a sudden it was new school and new Catholic school, new country. I'd only been here. New continent. I'd only ever been here twice or 3 times to Scotland before we moved here. So this was all pretty alien to me, and I developed a bit of an odd sort of, I guess, a depression, but I don't really want to call it that, when I was about 14. And that's when I first experienced child psychologists and
maybe
all their wisdom.
An unease.
Yeah, well, I was a nervous sort of teenager, and I was awkward, and I was very fat, and that didn't help. I didn't have an older sister, so nobody taught me about makeup. My mother was at that time not very feminine in her ways. She didn't wear a lot of makeup or anything, and she had a shaved head, so that was crazy. I was really awkward. I had frizzy hair, spots. I still have them, but I'm just a bit more comfortable with them now. I was unhappy, you know, and I've been unhappy sort of on and off these mad bouts of depression I get, and but lately I've been really, really happy because I've started to realize things about spirituality and how vital it is, and I didn't see that before, and I think it's very easy to get cloudy.
We should qualify that we don't mean religion at all.
No,
we don't mean that at all.
I have found some sort of peace within myself, and I have beliefs now, and I have, you know, something like that, and that is incredibly special. That's, you know, that's lovely.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I am. I'm not going to go too far into it. Dan really has the grammar for his chat. Mine is not so meaty yet. I don't have that grammar yet, but I'm working on it, so I'll be able to reference a lot more things soon.
But we love your logic and your rhetoric.
I've got logic and
fans of the trivium method.
Trivium method is yes.
Of education, but again, that's many shows in itself.
Yeah. So you know, I'd like to take a minute to maybe talk about a few of the dangers within society, the hidden.
Yeah, I just want to kind of summarize, so we're like kind of like on track here, because we've given a little bit of a sort of history of the both of us and stuff like that. So we were together. We've been together a long time. Yeah, you know, we've been married. Well, we've been married since 2008. We've
known each other since we were 15.
15 we met in school. Yeah, 15. In biology class. Yeah. But we're getting back into history. I just want to give some of the outline. So, and we've had different jobs. Like, you've worked in a bank, I've been an undertaker, I've worked in retail, and you've worked in a call centre. You know, so it's sort of different experiences and stuff, but it's just been recently that we've really synchronised our beliefs. Yeah. And that's going to be the sort of core thing of this. Yeah. Because we've gone on this sort of journey, and I think this kind of, we should totally bring this in. We were having ideas and stuff before. So we originally got rid of the television.
Yes, that was number one.
Yeah, because we were like, well, we're not really watching it. And
can we clarify that when we say get rid of the television, what we mean is we don't subscribe to any Freeview or cable channels.
Yeah, we don't have any Sky, channels, but we don't. Yes.
So basically, we have a computer. We have a TV screen that it's hooked up to a games console, which through that we watch Netflix. So we can kind of pick and choose what we want to watch, and then we have an extensive DVD collection as well.
So what we did first was we got rid of television. Yeah. Right. So we got rid of Sky. Yep. We don't have any TV. Right. Okay. Yep. We got rid of television, live television, program television. We don't have it. And that was our kind of first thing, and we weren't even thinking about these kind of ideas of doing a podcast at that time. No, but what the idea was, we were like, we'll just stop this. We're not watching it. You know, I'm not interested in the nonsense. Yeah. So we stopped that, and then. Well, and then we were lucky enough to have a little windfall. Very small windfall, enough of a windfall to buy a 8-track recorder. Yeah, once we had Barney. Once we were talking about these ideas. Yeah, so we were lucky enough that we were able to buy this 8-track recorder because we had been thinking about that for a while. Dan had been thinking about it. I had thought about it maybe a couple of times, but I was still going. I'm still really at the start of my journey. But Dan certainly had been thinking about it for a while, and we, like I say, were lucky enough to get this recorder, and so we could actually record and get our voices sort of out there, and it's nice to connect with people like that, you know? Yeah, so we had the idea when we were talking one night. We're sitting about one night, as we like to do. We like to hang out, and then had this incredible conversation, and then we both sort of realised that we have these page, and we have these amazing conversations all the time, and we get really into stuff, and wouldn't it make a good podcast? Because I listen to a lot of podcasts that are like that. Yeah. And then, as luck would have it, we got a PPI claim. Yes, we did. And we ended up having enough money just to buy a 8-track recorder.
Yeah.
And then just go for it. So it seems like the idea
came first, and then the circumstances to facilitate the idea came, and we thought, yes.
Why not?
We have to do this.
Let's go for it.
And what Dan was saying about the amazing conversations, this hasn't really... This show is really an introduction. That's just to sort of say who we are. It's not going to feel so scattered, sort of like that when we're actually doing it, because we literally just sit and we sort of have a conversation / debate about topics that we find interesting. So
it might be a little scattered, but
maybe a little bit. But it's not going to be like this when we're sort of talking over each other and stuff like that.
This is very freeform. This is very freeform just now.
I guess, yeah.
And I think maybe some of our discussions will be, just because we want to give people the sort of idea, like we want to convey kind of how we're doing this just now. We're sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Our dog, we've got a Jack Russell called Barney, and he's lying on my legs.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here having a cigarette.
And he's sort of looking about, And
I'm looking out the window. It's very nice.
Yeah, and we're a tenement flat in Glasgow, so we just want to kind of get across that idea that, like...
We're just sitting on the couch having a conversation. We thought, why not record that? So this is just to say hello
and why we record it live as well, and maybe we have a brief kind of discussion about what we might talk about, but it's free form, like we would have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our idea. That's what we want to convey.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's kind of just like a free-form married couple.
Just chilling out, having a conversation every night. Well, not every night.
Not every night. That would bore the arse off you,
that would really bore you.
Big time.
Yeah.
But, like, what we're thinking of doing as well, because we should probably talk about future shows, because I think we've given quite a good introduction to us.
Yeah.
Just to do a basic summary, homeschooling.
Yeah, that's going to be a biggie.
That's going to be a massive one, probably the biggest one. Parenting, anarcho-capitalism.
Sort of the libertarian idea, sort of personal property and property rights and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I have some opinions about that.
Kind of libertarianism
I would
generally,
say leaning towards that. Also, I'm going to do, my plan is to do, I don't know if it's going to be a series or anything, but I'm going to do a few shows on feminism, sort of new feminist wave, so that should be interesting.
Because you have a lot of interesting things to say about the, not only some things in the past in feminism, but, like, for example, how, just to give people a taster of what they might be hearing, like how, for example, before the sort of feminist movement in the 60s, it was very common for just a man to make enough money in work and the woman to stay at home.
Yes.
But now, like a male,
basically,
I was just going to say a couple of things. But now a married couple, like
both have to work.
They both have to work. They can't seem to make ends meet.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And like, what I think is like in a lot of ways the hijacking sort of the feminist movement, which I think has happened.
Yeah, I think that
I think it's been hijacked. I really do.
I think we're digressing a little bit.
We are digressing, but we're just sort of giving an idea of what these shows might sound like.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, I'm incredibly excited to start.
Well, I think you'll address these questions, Emily.
Oh yeah, no, of course. No, yeah. I know. And
maybe going back to the start as well.
Oh yeah, I'd like to start. The first murmurings of feminism way back when. I'd like to really get into that about who those women were, who those people were, and sort of taking it up through the ages. The 60s and stuff. And I'd take it all the way up to today. And I'm not going to go too much into it, but I've got a few opinions about
like pseudo-feminists and things, and feminism used for other things.
Well, I'll just say this right now. The only thing I'm going to say is I don't like the term feminism. I'm an equalist. I want equality.
That's an equalist.
I call myself an equalist.
Right,
I'm sure there is a much more better academic sounding name
for that. A much more better academic sounding
fanball.
There is a much more better academic thing.
I know. But yeah, I'm just an equalist, and I don't really play into gender roles as society presents them. So that's all I'm really going to say on that. But that will be, I'm going to do a sort of a series about gender and a series about what is called feminism, but I call it equalism. So there you
That's
go.
Cool.
Dan. Also, we're going to be doing a few things with some books too. A couple of book reviews, but not as you know them. We're doing autopsies.
Well, what we're going to do is we were going to start with
Alice in Wonderland. We're going to do
a favourite of Katie's.
My absolute favourite book. I have 11 copies and counting. I buy a copy.
All different copies.
All different copies because I need to. I don't know why, I just need to. But we're going to do an autopsy of Alice, basically. We're going to go through the entire book and just pick it apart and pick up some real things. There's a lot in Alice in Wonderland that is absolute... what's the word for it?
Well, I would say fascinating, but like...
No, what's the word when a film...
predicts things, or...
No, not predicts things, but it's like a... mirroring real life.
Oh.
It's like a cartoon could be something about the war. You know?
Like an allegory.
Is that the word?
Like an allegory, yeah.
I trust you. That's
what an allegory is, like how Animal Farm is an allegory.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot in Alice that's like that.
It's an allegory. Well, we'll also be picking apart things like Animal Farm, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. 1984. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Although those kind of last ones are quite transparent, but we'll relate them to modern life.
Of course.
Is what we'll do, yeah.
We'll relate them to today, what's happening right now.
Yeah. It's funny how these great novels and these great books...
I have to say, I think, like, for example...
I was going to say these great books, they do that, they seem to... Well, there's a debate, either they've saw what was going to happen, or people have read it and have suggested it, and someone else has gone, cool. But continue. Yeah.
No, I find it really amazing. I think we're eventually, and we're almost sort of there, the Minority Report stage, the Philip K. Dick.
I mean, the Minority Report one's a scary one.
I mean, but it's already sort of happening because now, I think what they're doing, do you know what they're doing now? Billboards are being customised to their area. There is a huge billboard near where we live on Victoria Road, and it just has a picture of a Big Mac, and it says, "Just tell the boss there was a tailback on Pollockshaw's Road." So it's a personalised to the area, but before you know it, we're in friggin' Minority Report, and we're having it through our friggin' eyes.
Well, that's the thing. That's actually...
And that's what we're seeing, adverts.
I've got actually a great thing to throw to this, is like... I know we're doing this as a concise introductory report. I know we've got off the topic, but get to expect this. This is what's going to happen. We're going to get off the point. But so we got a new van in work, right?
Right.
And I work for Royal Mail, postman. So we got
Are we allowed to say that and put it on the internet?
Of course we are.
I guess.
Well, it's just a fact.
I suppose.
What's wrong with working for Royal Mail?
Nothing. I didn't say there
I know it's a brand name, but...
No, I'm just saying, like...
Right, we're going to get too way off the point here, but let's really get right back to it. But, so we got a new van.
Yes.
And for example, see, the guys were telling this guy, John, so I got back into work, finished work, taking back stuff I couldn't deliver, like packages I couldn't deliver people and that, back to the office.
Yeah.
So I got in the office, put the stuff back in, John's standing there, and I'm like, how's it going?
Yeah.
And he's like, see that van's weird. And I'm like, well, what, the new one? He's like, I had to drive it. I was like, what's the problem with it? And he's like, it talks to you. I was like, what do you mean it talks to you? So he says, like, see, when you park, you park, you put the handbrake up, and then it goes, you actually put the handbrake up, right? Take off your seatbelt, and then it goes, a woman's voice comes on and goes, hello, have you put the handbrake on? Like that. Aye, and then you go in and he goes, hello, have your podcast belt on? And it starts talking.
That is the creepiest voice you've ever done.
Yeah,
Hello.
but it starts talking to you, and he's like, "How annoying is that going to get when the van starts talking to you?" But that's what it does.
Machines. It
starts talking to you.
Yeah. No, I have no doubt in my mind that that's where we're headed. We're headed to the
technocracy. I'm going to go with technocracy.
Where the technology takes over. Techno state. No. Okay.
Well, Isaac Asimov, obviously wrote about that in his novels, and then you have the kind of scariness of the whole zeitgeist thing. Seems like a good idea until they merge it with the Venus Project, which is like, yeah, the computers will run our life.
Yeah.
And you're like, really? Who's programmed the computer in the first place?
I know.
And is it really a good idea for the computer to run our life?
Probably not.
See, this is a major digression, and you're going to experience this a lot when listening to our
If anybody's still listening, I'm very surprised.
I'm sure you will be if you're just fascinated, but like digressions are often good in podcasts.
We can edit that out. That's fine.
No, I hear digressions.
We can add me saying it.
I hear digressions all the time.
You can edit me saying this.
I'll edit your face.
I'll edit your face through that wall.
I will edit your face through that wall. But yeah, we're just on a sort of free-form discussion now. So anything else you want to talk about?
No,
you happy with that?
I'm pretty happy with how it's gone. I think
34 minutes. I mean, we could have a chat about anything.
No, I think this is good to leave it here for the intro.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say thanks for listening.
Well, yes, I really thank you for listening. I don't know if anybody will, but I don't really care. If nobody does, then nobody does.
And she made you feel very thankful. If you're listening, I don't really give a fuck if you're listening.
No, I said
fuck you.
I said if nobody's listening, I don't care.
Yeah.
So if nobody listens to this, okay. But the fact that you are is
I think on our first podcast we should say that even if no one ever listened, this would be an excellent sort of audio diary for our kids to have.
I hope so, yeah.
So I thought that was a good idea, Mm-hmm. So yeah, but like I agree with Katie. So
if we have kids,
yeah, well, you never know.
There might be the episode entitled "We're Baden and Moving to Canada."
I don't know how we moved to Canada when we're Baden, as if that's where all...
You don't need to be Baden.
As if that's where all the Baden people go.
No.
Canada, full of the Baden people.
The Baden folk.
The Baden folk of Canada.
Baden folk. Right, we need to stop. Right. Okay.
Okay, well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. There'll be a lot more coming in the future. Our basic plans are going to launch the website. Greening out, yeah. And... our ideas are we're going to have a sort of second-hand bookshop on the website because we're eventually going to have a subscription sort of idea where you can subscribe for extra content, as I do to a lot of podcasts. But we're not going to have that content at first. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a donate button, obviously, and if you want to donate, that's great, and thank you very much. We're also going to... more of an idea is we're going to have a second-hand bookshop on the website so that you can buy second-hand books off us.
Because we have far too many. To be honest with you, we've read them and that's great.
Absolutely, and the profit will go to helping our show.
Yeah.
And you'll get a nice book that you may not have read that might be a brilliant book.
Might be fantastic.
Might be an excellent book.
I don't know. I don't know what one you want.
Yeah, so... yeah, if you want to donate or if you want to buy a book, that would be great. It would really help us out. We're just starting out. This is what we want to do.
And you know what? If there's anything you wanna hear about, like, please contact us. Like,
absolutely. Just
email us and say, I want to hear you guys talk about this and this and this and
this or that, or even just whatever.
Even just a basic topic. Even if you want to email and say, hey, fuck you, I don't like you. Whatever. Great. I'm glad the word's getting out there.
At least someone was listening.
At least someone was listening.
Alright. So I think from me, Katie, and Barney,
our dog. Good night.
And thanks very much for listening.